Welcome to the Parsha Perspective. Each week, we will delve deep in a weekly Torah portion to find a practical and insightful way to enhance your daily life. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Rabbi Shalom Yamini, and each week we will look into the weekly Torah portion to find practical and insightful ways to enhance your daily life. This week's Parsha Perspective is in honor of our homeland, Eretz Yisroel May. May God protect our brave soldiers, and may God return all the hostages from Gaza immediately. This week's Parsha Perspective is in honor of the Refuah Shlema of Yakkov ben Esther and all those who need to experience a speedy and complete recovery. This week's Parsha Perspective is in loving memory of Edward Ben Efraim, Shlomo Ben Edward, and Yirachmiel Daniel Ben Gedalia. May their souls be uplifted and may their memories be a blessing. This week's Torah portion is Parshas Veschanan, Words of Resilience. Before I begin, this Shabbos is known as Shabbos Nachamu, the Shabbos of Comforting. This name comes from this week's Haftorah, the first of 7 where God comforts the Jewish nation for our pain, our suffering, our trauma. The prophet Yeshayahu reassures us that God has not forgotten us, heaven forbid. The Haftorah begins with Yeshayahu telling the Jewish nation, נחמו, נחמו ami יאמר אלקיכם, comfort, O comfort my people, says the Lord your God. May we experience this comfort, reassurance, and the ultimate redemption in our days. Our Parsha begins with Moshe Rabbeinu continuing his final address to the Jewish people. He recounts how he begged God to let him into the land of Israel and how God refused his request. Instead, he was instructed to climb on top of a mountain where he would see the land from afar. Moshe Rabbeinu implores the Jewish people to cherish the Torah and value its wisdom. He reminds them that they are God's chosen people and the only nation whom God revealed himself to. Moshe then repeats the 10 Commandments to emphasize that God's covenant, God's bris with us, is applicable and forever with us. However, a question comes to mind. Our Parsha begins with a statement, Ve'eschanan el Hashem be'isahi lemar, and I pleaded with God at that time saying. Moshe Rabbeinu is recounting how he prayed, how he begged God to let him enter the land of Israel. But what time or date is Moshe alluding to? When exactly did Moshe Rabbeinu pray to enter the land of Israel? Rashi, Rav Shlomo Yitzchaki, the leading Torah commentary, gives an interesting explanation. He writes that Moshe Rabbeinu is referring to the prayer he offered after defeating the nations and the powerful armies of Sichon and Bashan. He assumed that since Sichon and Bashan were part of the nations living in Canaan, in the land of Israel at that time, God may have reversed his decision. Moshe thought that since he was allowed to defeat them in battle, perhaps he could also enter their lands, the land of Israel. However, the Orach HaMakodesh, Rav Chaim ben Attar, a Moroccan commentary and Kabbalist, gives a deeper and more profound explanation. He writes that Ba'isahi at that time is referring to when God swore to the nation that aside from Yeshua ben Nun and Caleb ben Yefuneh, the 2 spies that spoke good on the land of Israel, no other people would enter the land of Israel. The Jewish people believed the spies' interpretation of the land and complained to God and asking, why would you lead us to a land that kills its citizens? In response, God decided that the generation that left Egypt would not enter Israel. They could not rid themselves of their slave mentality. They lacked vision. They lacked perspective and could not picture themselves conquering and settling into the promised land. They wished to remain in the desert, traveling with the clouds of glory and basking in God's holiness. The Yirach HaMakodesh continues, and he quotes the Midrash Sifri, which explains that Moshe Rabbeinu knew that one prayer wouldn't suffice. It wouldn't be enough to reverse God's decision that the generation that left Egypt would not enter the land of Israel. And therefore Moshe Rabbeinu prayed that his future prayers, his future davenings, 515 to be exact, would reach the highest of highs, overturning God's ruling for that generation. Moshe prayed that his future words would reverse the decision and allow him to lead his people into the promised land. The idea behind this prayer, according to the Sifri, is that Moshe's words be the correct words. When he stands before the Melech Malchei Amlachim, the King of all kings, the Master, the Creator of the universe, he prays that he does not mumble, that his lips do not stutter, for the future of the Jewish people rests on his shoulders. This is like the Chazan's prayer on Yom Kippur before leading the congregation in the Musaf davening. Although I am unworthy for this task, I beseech before you the Lord our God, King of the universe, to accept my words as they are the correct words. from a person whose voice is sweet and who has no sins. May there be no stumbling in my prayer as my words journey with the heavenly angels to your heavenly throne. This profound lesson is ever more relevant as the Jewish people around the world are being confronted to validate their existence. Many who have shunned away from the limelight are being thrusted into the public eyes because they are Jewish. With the added stress of cameras and microphones, they are being challenged to explain their support for our brothers and sisters in the Holy Land. So may it be God's will that we do not hesitate nor stutter as we maintain and proclaim His oneness for the King of all kings, the Master of the universe, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and His presence and His holiness and His oneness forever. In our daily life, it is imperative that we realize that in today's digital age, every word we speak, every message we send leaves a permanent mark. Our conversations are not just a fleeting moment, but become part of a lasting record that can be visited by future generations. What we say, how we say it, who we speak to are filed, creating a legacy that can influence or inspire, and also the opposite, heaven forbid. Given the war in Israel, we must choose to use positive words, not merely as a coping mechanism, but as a testament to our resilience, to our strength. Every word we utter during these challenging times carries weight, echoing far beyond the immediate moment. Our words can uplift, foster unity, change the spirit, and serve as a beacon of hope amid the challenges we face. And this deliberate and intentional choice is not just about survival. It's about actively steering ourselves towards the Geula, towards the final redemption. There's a beautiful quote that I once heard. Each word we utter is a seed in a planted garden, the garden of eternity. Let's grow a garden of hope. Have a great weekend and good Shabbos. Thank you for tuning in to the Parsha Perspective. Check out our website, theparshaperspective.com. Send thoughts and comments to theparshaperspective@gmail.com. Till next time, thanks for listening.